The secret of silence power question is asked in a meeting. Everyone looks toward one person, but instead of answering immediately, that person stays silent, not nervous, not confused, just silent. Within seconds, the room becomes uncomfortable. Others begin speaking first. Some over-explain. Some try to remove the tension with unnecessary words. And yet, the silent person often appears the most composed person in the room. This reveals a psychological contradiction. Most people assume power comes from speaking more. Fast responses, constant opinions, verbal dominance. But social psychology suggests something different. People who speak the least are often perceived as more intelligent, emotionally stable, and authoritative. Why? Because humans are biologically uncomfortable with silence. Conversation normally functions as social reassurance. People speak continuously to reduce uncertainty and protect social approval. This is why nervous individuals often overtalk. The speech itself is not always communication. Sometimes it is self-protection. Words become psychological cover. Silence removes that cover. And this is why silence creates power. A person who can remain calm inside silence communicates something psychologically rare: low reactivity, high emotional control. Jung believed excessive external reaction often reveals internal instability. The person constantly reacting outwardly is often unconsciously controlled inwardly. This creates the central tension of silence. Most people speak to escape discomfort. The silent person tolerates discomfort without losing composure, and socially, people notice this immediately. 2. The psychology. Why silence commands respect. Humans instinctively assign meaning to restraint, especially verbal restraint. In social psychology, scarcity increases perceived value. The same applies to speech. When words become excessive, they lose weight. But when speech becomes selective, every sentence appears intentional. This creates an authority effect. People unconsciously assume quiet individuals are more observant, strategic, or knowledgeable, not because silence automatically means intelligence, but because controlled behavior is associated with competence. This becomes even stronger during conflict or negotiation. Silence creates pressure. Most individuals experience conversational gaps as socially threatening. The brain quickly tries to remove uncertainty. This is why people reveal unnecessary information during silence. They want relief from tension, but the person who remains calm changes the psychological balance completely because emotional control is interpreted as status. High reactive people rush to feel silence. Low reactive people allow silence to exist without panic. Jungian psychology deepens this further. Jung argued psychologically integrated people are less dependent on external validation. As a result, their communication becomes measured rather than compulsive. Silence therefore becomes evidence of non-reactivity, not superiority. Control. 3. The Stoic principle. Say only what is necessary. Epictetus said, "Be silent for the most part," or if you speak, say only what is necessary psychologically. This is not just communication advice. It is emotional regulation. Most human speech is reactive. People react to criticism, react to awkwardness, react to insecurity. Words emerge before thought fully forms, but controlled silence interrupts this process. It creates distance between stimulus and response. And psychologically, that distance matters, because reactive speech often reveals dependence on external opinion. A person criticized immediately defends themselves. A person challenged immediately over-explains. The response appears verbal, but underneath, it is emotional. The individual is trying to restore internal balance through external reaction. This is why silence often unsettles reactive people. The silent person cannot be easily read or emotionally controlled. Jung described this as psychological differentiation. Most people unconsciously absorb the emotional rhythm of the group. Silence interrupts that rhythm. It signals independence from the emotional atmosphere around them. But silence should not become performance. Forced silence often communicates insecurity rather than strength. True silence emerges from reduced psychological urgency. The person no longer feels compelled to constantly prove intelligence or defend identity, and this reveals another contradiction. The most verbally expressive people are not always the most secure. Very often, excessive expression is compensation for the balance. Silence vs. isolation. Silence can easily be misunderstood. Psychological restraint is not the same as emotional withdrawal. Some people use silence strategically, others use it defensively to avoid vulnerability or connection. But socially isolated silence creates a completely different effect. Humans remain social organisms. Respect is not created through detachment alone. It emerges through controlled engagement. Social psychology shows people trust attentive listeners more than dominant talkers. Because listening communicates presence, the listener appears less self-absorbed, more observant, more emotionally stable. This creates a paradox. Quiet individuals are often respected not because they speak less, but because others feel psychologically understood around them. Measured speech creates space, and space changes behavior. People reveal more, explain more, project more. Meanwhile, the attentive person gathers information without emotional urgency. But balance remains important. Silence without warmth becomes distance. Silence without engagement becomes ambiguity. The goal is not permanent quietness. The goal is intentionality. Viek. The 3-second rule on simple behavior reveals psychological control immediately. Timing. Most reactions are automatic. A question appears. A criticism emerges. An awkward moment happens. The brain instantly tries to remove discomfort through speech. This reaction comes from emotional survival systems, but introducing a brief pause changes the process completely. This is why the 3-second rule works. Before responding, the individual waits briefly, not dramatically, not artificially, just long enough for impulsive reaction to weaken. Neurologically, this shifts processing away from emotional reflex toward deliberate evaluation. The response becomes chosen rather than automatic. This creates several effects simultaneously. The speaker appears calmer. The response becomes clearer. Emotional contagion weakens. The individual stops absorbing the urgency of the environment automatically. This matters because modern communication rewards speed over clarity. People interrupt rapidly, react instantly, speak continuously, but fast communication often reveals emotional dependency on immediate validation. Strategic silence interrupts that dependency. The pause therefore becomes diagnostic. It reveals whether someone controls their reactions or whether their reactions control them. 6. Conclusion. Most people misunderstand silence because they see communication only at the surface level. Words appear active, silence appears passive psychologically. The opposite is often true. Excessive speech frequently emerges from unconscious emotional movement. Silence requires restraint, observation, tolerance for uncertainty. This is why restrained individuals are often perceived as more authoritative. Not because silence creates intelligence, but because controlled behavior suggests controlled internal structure. and humans instinctively trust signs of internal stability. Jungian psychology frames this as integration. The fragmented person reacts automatically to external stimuli. The integrated person creates distance between emotion and expression. That distance becomes socially visible, and people interpret it as composure, confidence, and authority. The modern world rewards immediate reaction, instant opinions, instant outrage, instant expression. Silence disrupts that rhythm. It slows perception, and psychologically, slowed perception increases awareness. Because the real power of silence is not what it hides. It is what it reveals about control.